Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video together, the baby dog and mama, in the early evening after a long day of working, cleaning the house and sewing with my back sore, but that's okay. What matters is that the baby dog is feeling good. Yes, that is what matters at all times. That is the only thing that matters, as a matter of fact. Yes, that is the only thing that matters for me, is my beautiful baby dog, my beauty, beauty, beauty baby. Yes, entzückend. Entzückend means enchanting. He is my enchanting being, my entzückendes Wesen. Yes, that is what my beautiful Casey Kasem is, the reincarnation of the radio host in LA, Casey Kasem from Israel. Yes, that is his reincarnation. He was an animal rights activist, a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful man and soul. And Baby Dog and I watched a crime report video together at the other house. That was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And it was 48-hour crime report on Casey Kasem. And we are watching and watching and watching. And I hear this name Casey Kasem. I never saw him before, because I never listened to radio, so I never knew anything about him until this crime report came out. And he used to always say, reach for the stars, you can do it. And I think that's a beautiful message. So one beautiful radio host in LA, and guess what happens? It's the beautiful souls that usually fall victim to predators. Okay, it's awful sad. So what happened is when they said Casey Kasem, and I just thought the name is interesting, and I repeated the name, Casey Kasem. The baby dog jumped up next to me, looked me in the eyes, deep into the eyes, and smiled. And I said, oh my gosh, you are Casey Kasem. You are the reincarnation of radio host Casey Kasem in LA. And ever since then, I had already given him the name Elon Arnold Dandelion. But now I had to revise the name back to Casey Kasem, and from now on I'm just going to tell people his name is Casey Kasem. That's what I'm going to say. So, because that's who he is, that is his true beingness, is Casey Kasem, and the Blue God agrees, 333. This is not a coincidence. That's the truth, what I'm saying. So, yeah, just a brief review on the crime report. He took the wrong woman, which often happens. We take the wrong partners in our lives. And usually when the partnership happens through physical attraction, okay, that's when we choose, we're guaranteed to choose the wrong partner for our lives. And it's always happened to me in the past, but that's not the whole truth. I also chose the wrong partner by being friends first for a year or two. That happened too. So, and then I chose him as a partner because I was like, okay, so he's in love with me, and I should give him a chance. Okay, and then it also went wrong. So that was complete. Have I ever had a really good partner? No, I haven't. And I had many. Yeah. Short lived and long lived. None of them worked out. And the one and only that I loved, there was a man I loved, client of my mother. He got divorced. My mother filed the divorce papers for him and all of that, and asked because she was that was her specialty. She was a divorce lawyer, and he liked us so much. They liked him. I liked him very much, but only as a friend, as a dear friend. He was more than 20 years older than me, and I never even had the idea that could be maybe a boyfriend or maybe a husband. Never had that thought. He also had a relationship with someone, a girlfriend he had, and she was very nice, so the thought never occurred to me. But then later on, I realized, my gosh, he liked me. Okay. He liked me a lot on all levels. And I should have noticed that. I didn't even notice that at that time. That just dawned on me later on. And then I was already living in the United States by that time. So, but I'll never forget him. He died a couple of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, from old age, and very sad, all of that. I just hope that he found peace and happiness with that girlfriend, And I hope that his daughter kept visiting him. That's all I can say. It's all of these reflections that I have. Reflections on the past. And regrets and remorse, and a lot of times I say, oh man, I wished I had known better then. I wished I had known what I know today. When I was 20, I could have avoided a lot of pain and struggling and hardship. A lot. But it is what it is, It's soul school. That's what it is. Yeah, we traveled with him. Traveled with this man, a very wealthy businessman. Traveled with him to our favorite travel destination, Mombasa, Kenya, to beautiful hotel, leisure lodge. They had expanded it, and that was during the so-called Commonwealth era, when Great Britain was running Kenya, and everything was in law and order, and everything was as well taken care of as possible. Okay. There were very poor people there, and I felt bad seeing that. And I didn't know how they would solve that problem with the poverty. But the city of Mombasa, which is, I think it's the capital city of Kenya, that is quite a wealthy city, actually. It was, so, and there were also quite a number of wealthy native Kenyan people. So some of them photo models, and some of them that made it very, very far. Okay. So why were then these other people in the rural outskirts, why were they so poor? They didn't have enough water. They didn't have enough water wells. So it was Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, who went there with his 5 amazing friends. They went to Africa, the whole of Africa. They traveled all the way around that country, and particularly to those areas where they were very, very poor. And they drilled wells for them, for the people, for the native people. And they were all in awe with these 5 young men that came there, and they put their physical work, labor, and sweat into this, and money. Okay, that must have cost them millions and millions and millions of dollars, maybe $100 million. Okay, and they made the documentary about it, and that was one of his outstanding performance videos on YouTube. Okay. And he does deserve a Nobel Prize for that. And he does deserve all of this attention and the subscriptions, 100%. Okay, so if anyone deserves it, it's him. And he has surpassed all the other people. So he's the #1 YouTuber, and he should be, absolutely rightly so. Bill Gates could have done the same. Okay, with his money. Bill Gates has even more money than Jimmy Donaldson. But Bill Gates never did it. Bill Gates' own daughter, when she was, I don't know, 10 years old, she said, "Daddy, why can't you help these people in Africa?" And he said, "Honey, that's a complicated matter," or something. Obviously not as complicated, because Jimmy Donaldson and these people are like in their mid-20s, and they went there and they did it. They drilled wells for those people. So it's obviously doable. If there's a will, there is a way. Okay. Some food for thought here. So, yeah, there are a lot of poor people around the whole planet. Not just in Africa. Okay, in South America too. And in Australia too. And India, it's really bad. Really, really bad. It's horrific what's going on. And then terrible, terrible things that people do out of poverty. They sell their own little girls into human trafficking in India. It's absolutely horrific. Horrific, 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 horrific. I would rather die than do that. That's just me, but there's a lot of creatures on this planet, that human creatures that put themselves and that put money over their loved ones. Painful to hear that, very painful. And I guess maybe the majority of humans are very self-centered and self-driven. And that's why the governments are corrupt. That's why there is so much corruption and suffering and human abductions and animal suffering in factory farms. Okay, that's why. So, what can an activist, what can an armchair activist like me do about all of this? The ETs say, live from your heart. Okay, that's the best you can do already. Okay. Live as good as you can. Live as kind as you can. Then you're already doing a lot for the world. It's the truth, okay? Make artwork out of packaging materials and make videos. Share how you feel about your emotions. Honest videos, not edited videos. Okay, I never understood why people edit their videos and then they have their so-called blooper video clips at the end, or have an entire video dedicated for their blooper videos, the ones that they edited out. Why? It doesn't make sense. Is that supposed to be funny, or I don't see how that's funny. Why don't you just leave those bloopers in the video? I gotta be honest with you. I have done it too. I'm not on a high pedestal here. But what I do is I throw the whole video out. That seems more honest as an approach than to edit something out. That's just... So my videos are not edited. Okay, and that's how I want it. Raw and real. Baby. With eyebrow picking and nose picking and stuttering and occasionally coughing and fighting with Paul. Paul putting the jacket over his face. So why not? I mean, just to show what's actually happening here. Not some facade, not some like, I am somehow so whatever, so flawless or whatever. No. Hell no. I'm not flawless. Okay. And no one is. Whether they edit their videos or not. Nobody is flawless. That's also an old saying from England that I've heard my entire life. I don't know why they have these old sayings from England and Germany. I guess England has a lot of influence on Germany. They look up to them. They do. They really do. They all, when they travel there, they want to adopt their Oxford English and all of that. They wanna look. No, I'm talking about the people from the Rotary Club, and I'm not making fun of them, but it's just interesting to see how they were, how very, very taken up with that. And Eckhart Tolle, no exception. Okay, Eckhart Tolle, he wants to study in Cambridge, and he wants to pick up that nice British accent, and he wants to be studying philosophy there, and he wants to be accelerating with this excellence. Okay, so, and he talked about this honestly, this is not something that I'm exposing. He talked about this, and I'm grateful to him that he did, because that's a tragic, difficult thing what Eckhart Tolle went through. Tragic, to try to set himself apart from his dad, and he's from Germany, and so he moved to England to study there. I guess he studied in Germany too, but that was not, I guess he didn't think that was achievement enough, so he wanted to go to Cambridge and really go to a very prestigious university there. We don't have really prestigious universities in Germany, okay? But I don't care about this. I couldn't care less about whether a university is prestigious or not that I go to. That's ridiculous. I go to university or whatever they call it, graduate school. The time from that you go towards the bachelor degree and to the master's degree. Okay, that could be 7 years or 8 years. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that the professors are good. Okay, and I was lucky. I had one good professor, one good one, for psychology and physiological psychology. I'll never forget her. Amazing professor. The other ones were kind of they were mentally ill. That's why they were that's why they were psychology professors. Yeah, but that's what it is, okay? And yeah, I was mentally ill, and that's why I could not finish it, because I was scared of giving presentations. But Eckhart was not afraid of giving presentations. Eckhart was very ambitious in all of that and never had that problem. But he had a problem with wanting to be flawless. And you can't be flawless, because no living being can be flawless. And I'm sure that the ETs will even attest to that as well and say, you view us as flawless. You know, they all look like Brad Pitt and Matt Damon and all of these ETs. You know. And that Fabio, when he was young, that photo model guy with the long hair, they all look like that. So, and we think they're flawless because they've achieved Buddhahood, you know. But they will not say that they're flawless. I know, but that's part of being flawless. So I guess it is. Now, that's one aspect of being pretty accomplished, is to say, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. Okay, I'm not flawless. So there are some people that are really flawed that can say that too. But those are really the exceptions. And I respect these people for that. You know, to be able to say that they didn't think of themselves as so high on a pedestal. But, you know, however flawless or whatever people have achieved in their lives, the ETs have achieved a lot, obviously. They have made it to type 1 civilization. So when an entire society has made it to type 1 civilization, and I wonder, I have so many questions for them. Oh my gosh. One question is, do you have a prison? Do you have some criminals in your society? Are there some that are not Buddha? So I'm interested in hearing about this. Saw some light behind my head. I guess that was a Fata Morgana. I always see all kinds of things that trip me up, but it's okay. You know, I'm not as afraid anymore as I used to be. I see more even in the monitor than I would see when I look just into the room. I see light dancing, light pixels dancing and stuff. When I look into the room, there's constant motion going on. But when I look into the monitor and I look like onto the ceiling in the monitor, then I really see stuff dancing around in there, like whizzing around, like static on the old TVs. So, constant whizzing and buzzing and churning. So, yes, this is full of ghosts and light particles, photons, and other quantum realm particles that are in motion, and it is good. So it's really wonderful. Okay, they did a study at CERN, in that CERN, Switzerland, nuclear accelerator, and some people wanted to find out what happens if you create a completely sterile tube. They have a lot of tubes there that they use for testing collisions and so on. But they took one of the tubes, and a completely sterilized tube. They made sure that tube was completely, I don't know how they were able to do it, completely sterile, completely. They took they sucked out all the protons and electrons. I don't know how they did that, but they got all of that out. They tried to also get the subatomic particles, as far as they even know about them. Okay, there are endlessly many, but they got that all out of that tube. And then they had a camera in there, and then they let the camera film that for a week. So just to see what's going on after all the stuff was removed. And lo and behold, the camera, like a night vision camera, very, very sensitive, highly sensitive camera that they installed in there, that was also filming, of course, that there was an electron microscopic type of camera that they put into it, and the camera picked up incredible activity in there. And I saw the film of that. I was amazed. It looked just like those lava lamps. We used to have lava lamps, Paul and I, long time ago. I was crazy about those. When we were living in LA, we had lava lamps. I gave some of them away because we had to give most of our stuff away because we moved into a motorhome after we saw the house. But I had a bunch of these lava. I'm making video. Dang, I'm making a video. So, but we had these amazing lava lamps, and that looked so amazing. Once that gets heated up, that wax that's inside of the water gets heated up and forms droplets and blobs. And then these blobs, because they always like to, when it gets heated up, a wax or like an oily substance, that I think it's some kind of like a candle wax or something that they put in there, and together with an aquatic fluid with ink in it, and then the wax is in a different color, and then they also have a light on the bottom, LED light that shines up. So, and then once the lava lamp, it has a heat element in there, and once that heats up the substance, then the wax melts and then creates these blobs and looks like drops, and it will draw to itself. The big blob draws the other droplets into itself, and then it's kind of like with the planets, and then that will then go up, because the wax always tends to go up in water, or wax or oil always goes up onto the surface of the water. But when everything is heated up, the wax still goes up more than the water does. And then it makes these amazing formations of wax, candle wax material that, when liquid, just makes these ghost formations that go up and stretch and tear and create two blobs and then come back together, and just a constant movement that's very, very relaxing for the nerves. That's why a lot of people like those. And these videos with that highly sensitive camera that was filming the activity in that sterile tube, that was showing exactly the same thing, the same activity. that you would see like depicted from the lava lamp, but it looked just like that. It's not the same, but it looked very much like that. Like there are particles and blobs that create, like almost look like that cartoon figure Casper, like the ghost, you know. And I couldn't believe it, what I saw. And then it would create this blob, and that would move and dance, and then it would break apart and come back together with other particles. It's like a constant motion that's going on in there. After they removed all of that, but you can never, that's the thing, you can never remove everything because you don't even know everything. So there are endlessly more particles present that were not removed, obviously. And there are so many particles or subatomic particles present, or, you know, you can't even call them particles anymore. That's why people fought so much, like, what is this, a particle or a wave? And they fought and fought and fought once they got into the subatomic realm in science, okay? So, but I don't see why I never thought that made any sense why people would fight over this. This is a phenomenon that's accepted as a phenomenon, okay? It is. Those are particles, but at some point you can't even call it particle anymore, but it's still particles. But those are particles that will go through this computer. Okay, so nuclear particles. They go through the house and through the window and back and through the chair and through my artwork, and you don't even notice it. They don't cause any damage, unless it's a nuclear explosion, of course. But those particles are all the time there. They're constantly, and you can see it's whizzing in the ceiling. Okay. Those are usually photons, what you see, but who knows? You might be able to see even some other particles as well. And then when you have some kind of twilight, then it becomes more pronounced. It's very interesting. But it's interesting after they removed most of that stuff that there's still this activity going on. So that means there are endlessly more particles and more quantum realm matter or quantum realm energy. At some point you can just call it energy. It's not particle anymore, it's energy. People say it's a wave. Well, there could be a wave of particles, right? Like in the ocean. So a wave of energy. So energy is just when the particles are so microscopic, so nano microscopic, that they will elude out of any current measurement device. Okay, and if they get better measurement devices, they will detect more particles, give them more names. So just will endlessly happen. Okay, and then there will still be more because that measure instrument can only measure up to that much and then not further, and there will still be more beyond that. So that is my logical, very reason-based extrapolation into this matter. Okay, so it's just logical, it just makes sense, right? So there is never an end to anything, to particles, to energy, to lengths into the infinite cosmos, okay, to depth and space and matter and energy and time. Time is an illusion anyway. Okay, time is totally subjective, It is our subjective perception in this particular situation here on Earth, particular perception of time. Okay, maybe on Mars time will be maybe a little bit stretched from here. Okay, I don't know, I'm just guessing. So, and when you travel faster and faster, and you're getting so fast that you getting almost close to the speed of light, then time will slow way, way, way down. Okay, so, and time fizzles out into the infinite cosmos. So, this is our perception here. Okay. Jiddu Krishnamurti and David Bohm talked about this in length. That time is an illusion. That's why Nima Akarni Hamed said space-time is doomed, and Donald Hoffman. And they're all of their mathematicians that are on board with Donald Hoffman. They all figure that out with math, that and with geometry. It's very interesting. My God, that time is our particular individual earth-based perception. So it's not the same time perception somewhere else. And some people may have completely conquered all of these kind of measurements. So, and I believe the ETs have. So that's how much advanced they are. They have conquered their own minds. They have all become yogis. Okay. Jiddu Krishnamurti, he said he was in India and he was invited. Okay, this is what happened. He was living with other people together in India for a while, or visiting. He was visiting friends. And all of a sudden, a group of people comes over and says, "We don't know why we're knocking on your door." The owner opens and they say, "I don't know why we're knocking on your door, but we sensed that a great mind is residing here." And the person was shocked, and they said, "Yeah, it's Jiddu Krishnamurti. He's visiting." And he invited them in, and they're all very hospitable to each other. And they sat together, and that yogi that sensed that Jiddu Krishnamurti was present. And he didn't even know about him, but now he learned all about him. And that was the great yogi himself. And they were all sitting, they sat on the ground, on the floor. And in India, the traditional way of eating is sitting on the floor on a Persian rug, or some kind of original Indian from India, Indian, not native Indian, Native American, native Indian as from India. Okay, the native people in India, they make Persian type of rugs and stuff like this. And they sat on that in a big circle, and they were eating. And all of a sudden, that yogi that knocked on the door and had this knowing that Jiddu Krishnamurti was there. He sat in a lotus position, which is you sit on the floor and you put your feet on top of each thigh, and you sit very straight. And in this lotus position, he suddenly floated across this circle and sat next to Jiddu Krishnamurti. These people have mastered their minds to a point where they are able to transcend gravity, energy, and particles. Okay, and I believe it. Paul would never believe that story. Okay, never. I believe it 100%. I had a friend in LA. She used to be an actress lady. She even worked with Steven Spielberg together. So they did some experimental videos with her and when he was still quite young. So, and she was very young. She was like 18 or something. And she's originally from Sweden. And she moved to LA to make it in Hollywood. But there's so much competition going on. But she was in some movies. She was, but then she had a competitor that looked quite similar to her, and then they chose the competitor. That's all sad for her. But she got very much into yoga, meditation, and Jiddu Krishnamurti's teachings. And she went to some actor's house one time. She was still young. She was like 30 or something. And they were invited to this actor's house to even stay overnight. And there was Jiddu Krishnamurti was invited too. And he was quite young there still at that time. I don't know. He was like 40 or something. And 40 or 45. And they dedicated one room to him. He had the room where he could always come. He had a lot of those people where he was always welcomed. And it was in the evening, and Lynn was actually looking for a restroom. She opens the wrong door, and that was Jiddu Krishnamurti's room, and she sees him floating above his bed in a meditation. And she sees on the bed some kind of romance novel. And that she couldn't quite compute what she was seeing. She closed the door in a rush. And then she felt sad that maybe the door made a loud noise. And later that night, she asked him on the dinner table, "When I opened your door, I'm sorry that I did. I was looking for the restroom. And I saw the romance novel on your bed. And then when I closed the door really fast, did that make you fall down?" He said no. And then she said, "Why are you reading romance novels when you are such an amazing yogi, so advanced?" He said, "Well, he's a man, and he's a living being too. So he has hormones too. And he likes to read something juicy and sexy too, because he enjoys that too, like everyone else, you know." And so I just thought that was really fascinating, what she told us. Very fascinating. And then I met another woman who had been at the Jiddu Krishnamurti speeches in Ojai, California, a lot. And she's a multimillionaire. And I think these teachings have helped her get very far in her life. That's what I believe. I really strongly believe that. Because when we hear him talk, and he has this emphasis on what's really important is your loved ones as your number one priority. Loving yourself, feeding yourself, and living out of a sense of deep gratitude. Blue God agrees. 4455. That's the truth, what I'm saying. Deep gratitude and respect for all life. Okay. And mindfulness, where time stands still. Okay. Mindfulness when you don't have to function in your daily life. Okay. Of course, we also have to function, he says, That's when we have to be focused. But we focus in a much more efficient way when we have to function. When we take the time, like at least 2 hours of meditation per day, or 5 hours of just sitting there contemplating, or doing something, sewing with the hand, which I do, like a sewing meditation, where you really have to do something very, very gradually and very mindfully, not in a rush. Okay, so not watch the news anymore, not watch fake Hollywood movie stuff anymore. So really go out in nature, look into trees. This is what heals us. This is what heals the mind and body. That's what heals all of us, actually. So that's what I do every day. I get grounded. So I still have to do this now after the video. I wanted to utilize the last daylight now for this video. But that's what I wanted to talk about. I think this is extremely important. Mindfulness and humbleness. Nobody knows everything. We will never know everything, because there is no such thing as everything. Everything does not exist, because it's infinity. That's why. Okay? So, you guys take care. Peace and love for all living beings.